Hi everyone. Yesterday we ended the session with the discussion on for loop, and today we will continue with while loop. Okay, what is a while loop and how to work with a while loop? We will see that now. So consider this list again. First list equal to 1578. Okay, now my aim is to print this list. I mean print each and every element in the list. Okay, I want to print 1578 from the list, and I can do that using a while loop. Okay, so first, before using a while loop, we need to initialize a index variable. I is equal to 0. We can call it as an index variable because we will be using this I as an index for the list. Okay, and we will see how we are going to use that. So I is equal to 0. Now I am going to use my while loop. While I less than length of a. Length of a is the function to get the length of the list. So I less than length of a. So we remember that index of a list starts from 0 and ends at length minus 1. So index will start at 0 and ends at 3. Okay, that is the logic here. So we have one while loop. In that while loop we have the index variable. I am saying like my index is starting from 0 and it is less than the length. What is the length here? Length is 4. So while 0 less than the length, what I will be doing? I will be printing a of I. Yes, we know that using the index we can get the element of the array. So if I say a of 0, I will be getting 1. If I say a of 1, I will be getting 5. In the same way, if I say a of 3, I will be getting 8. So when I say a of I, I will be getting the element at the ith index. So that is why it is called we can call it as an index variable. So for the first iteration, I will be 0. So 0 less than 4, that is correct. So print a of 0. That means it will print 1. So after printing the element, what we are going to do? We are going to increment the index value by I equal to I plus 1. So now what is the value of I? I will be 1. Then again this condition will be checked. 1 less than length of a, which is 4. 1 less than 4. Yes. Then what it will print? Print a of 1, which is 5. Okay. A of 1 element at the index 1 is 5. That gets printed. Again the index variable will be incremented and it will become 2. 2 less than 4. What is the element at the index 2? It is element 7. 7 gets printed. Then again I equal to I plus 1. So what is the value of I now? Value of I is 3. So 3 less than length of a. That is 3 less than 4, which is again true. So what happens? Element sitting at index 3 will get printed, which is the value, that is 8. So 8 gets printed, and then again I will be incremented. Now this time I value is 4, but 4 is not less than the length, which is again 4. 4 is not less than 4. So we will be exiting from the while loop. So using while loop we can traverse the list. Okay.
How to decide whether to use for loop or while loop in your program? Okay, you have a program and for a particular operation you need to use either for loop or while loop, but you need to decide which one to use. But how would you decide that? So if you have a loop and if you are able to know the number of iterations that you are going to make beforehand, then that loop is called definite loop. I repeat, you have a loop and you know the number of iterations that you are going to make beforehand. Such kind of loops are called definitive loops. So those definitive loops can be iterated using for loop. Okay, if you know the number of iterations that you are going to make beforehand, go for loop. Okay, for loop is used when you know the number of iterations that you are going to make beforehand. So consider a list. Consider a list with 5 elements. That means at max you will be making 5 iterations because you know the length of this list. Since you know the number of iterations beforehand, go for a for loop. Okay, this is one example. Yes, you know the number of iterations that you are going to make. So in most of the sequences, you will be able to know the number of iterations beforehand. So in sequences, you can go with for loops. Okay, so for sequences like list and arrays, go for a for loop. Okay, let us say you are not sure how many times your loop actually repeats beforehand. Okay, then those loops are called indefinite loops. I mean to say, you are not sure how many times your loop actually repeats. Then such kind of loops are called indefinite loops. Indefinite loops can be iterated using while loop. Okay, definite loops are iterated using for loops and indefinite loops are iterated using while loops. Okay, so you need to go for while loops in case of indefinite loops. That means you don't know the number of iterations that you are going to make beforehand. Now consider this example where a user is supposed to keep on entering an input value unless the input value matches a particular value. I mean to say, user has entered one value and that value will be checked against a predefined value, and if that value doesn't match, the user will be prompted to enter the value again, and this prompt will repeat until the user enters the correct value. So here we don't know when exactly the user enters the correct value. That means this loop is indefinite. Now take this example where we defined a variable called roll number and assigned a value 1, 2, 3, 4 to the variable roll number. Okay, roll number equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. Now what we have done, we have prompted the user to enter a number. So this will prompt a user to enter the number. Okay, and that is assigned to number. What we are doing now, we are actually trying to compare both the values, the defined value and the value entered by the user. If both are not equal, we are prompting the user to enter the number again. So how many times this loop will repeat? This loop will repeat until the number entered by the user matches the number that we have defined. Okay, till the time this loop will repeat. That means here we don't know the number of iterations beforehand because we are really not sure when the user will enter the exact number that we have defined. Okay, so this is an indefinite loop. So this loop can be iterated using a while loop. Okay, indefinite loops can be iterated using a while loop. So this can be explained using a flowchart. Roll number equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the variable that we have defined. Okay, and assigned value 1, 2, 3, 4 to that variable. Then we are prompting the user to enter a number. Okay, we are prompting a user to enter a number. Now we will check. Here user entered 1 2 3. Here we defined 1 2 3 4, but the user entered 1 2 3. Now we are checking if roll number not equal to number entered by the user. Okay, then what we will do? We will repeat. We will prompt the user to enter the number again. This time what user entered? He entered 133. Again we will check if roll number not equal to number or not. Yes, because user entered 133, but the number that we have specified or defined is 1 2 3 4, which is again false. So then again this loop will repeat. Now we have asked the user to enter number again. This time user entered 1 2 3 4, and we are comparing again that number entered by the user against the number that we have defined. This time the number matches. So what we will do? This if condition will fail and we will exit the while loop. So this is how an indefinite loop can be iterated using a while loop. Okay. So the summary is, if your loop is a definite one, that means you know when exactly the loop ends. Okay. So in case of definite loops, go for loop only. Okay. If your loop is an indefinite one, that means you are not sure when the loop actually ends. If you are not sure when actually the loop ends, then go for while loop. Okay. Definite loop, use for loop. Indefinite loop, use while loop. Okay. What is a nested loop? A loop containing one or more loops can be called a nested loop. A loop containing one or more loops can be called a nested loop. A nested loop can be your for loop or a while loop. Anything can be a nested loop. One example is like, one use case is like, you can use a nested loop for traversing two sequences at a time. You have two sequences and you want to traverse those two sequences at a particular time. Okay, at a point of time. Then you can go for nested loops. Take this example. List 1 equal to 1 6 9. Okay. List 2 equal to 7 12 4. List 1 and list 2 can be simultaneously traversed using a nested for loop. Yes, these two lists can be traversed simultaneously using a nested for loop. This is how we are going to do. For element I in list 1, okay, for element I in list 1, and then inside that for loop, another for loop. So this first for loop will be a nested for loop. So for inside the first for loop, we will be having another for loop. What it says? It says for element j in list 2. What we will do? We will print I and j. So this program will print 1 and 7 in the first iteration, 1 and 12 in the second iteration, 1 and 4 in the third iteration, 6 and 7 in the fourth iteration, 6 and 12 in the fifth iteration, 6 and 4 in the sixth iteration, and it continues so on. Okay, this is how a nested for loop is executed. So what is nested for loop? A loop containing one or more loops is called a nested for loop. Now we will see loop control statements. Okay, we will see some loop control statements. So what are loop control statements? These are the control statements which decide the flow of code execution in your loop. Let us say you have a program In that program, you want to execute your for loop or while loop only if a particular condition matches within that loop. Okay, if that particular condition is not matching, then you don't want to execute that loop, or you don't want to execute that particular iteration. Then control statements will be helpful. So break statement, this is one control statement. Yes, this will decide the flow of your code execution in the loop. That is one control statement. Next, continue statement. This is also a loop control statement. Next is pass statement. So break statement we have continue statement, we have pass statement. Using these three statements, we can decide the flow of code execution in the loop. Okay. What is a break statement? Break statement would break the code execution in the loop. Let us say you have a for loop, and inside that for loop you have a break statement. What that break statement will do? It will break the code execution there itself, and we will be exiting from the for loop. Okay, so whenever there is a break statement, what will happen? Code execution inside the for loop gets stopped. We will be exiting from the for loop. Take this example, list 1 equal to 169. Okay, this is a list. Now this list can be iterated using this for loop. For I in list 1, if I equal to 6, if I equal to 6, what I will do? I will break. That means code execution inside the for loop gets stopped when I equal to 6. And the next statement is the print statement. So what this program is doing? This program is trying to print elements, but we see a break statement here. So what is this break statement doing? This is going to break the for loop when this gets executed. But when this gets executed, it will get executed when I equal to 6. Only then it gets executed. So what is the outcome of this program? The outcome is that only one gets printed. Because what happens? First, for I in list 1, that means 1 will be picked. 1 is not equal to 6. Okay, so break statement will not be executed and 1 gets printed. In the next iteration, 6 will be picked up, but 6 equal to 6, which is true. So what happens? Break statement will get executed. So what this break statement will do? This break statement will stop the code execution within a loop. That means when it matches the element 6, break statement gets executed and it stops the code execution within this loop. And then again, it won't again search for element 9. No. After printing 1, this code execution gets stopped within that particular loop. Okay, that is all about break statement. So what break statement will do? It will terminate the code execution within a for loop. Next, continue statement. Continue statement will only terminate the current iteration. It will not terminate the entire code flow, but it will only terminate the current iteration of the loop. So the continue statement would break the code execution of the current iteration in the loop. That means it will only break the code execution of the current iteration. But what will break statement will do? It will stop the code execution of the loop, code execution inside the loop. But here continue statement will just stop the current iteration. That's it. Next iteration will be continued. Take this list 1, 6, 9. So using for loop we can iterate it. So for I in list 1, if I equal to 6, what I will do, I will continue, and my next statement will be print. So what happens, if the element matches 6, then we will just break the current iteration only. So what is the output of this program? First, for I in list 1, that means element 1 gets picked and it will be checked against value 6. Since they are not equal, continue statement will not be executed and 1 gets printed. And then element 6 gets picked up and it will be checked against value 6. Since both are equal, what happens? Continue statement will get executed, and hence what continue statement will do, it will skip the current iteration. That means this time 6 will not get printed. Then again 9 gets picked up, okay, and 9 is checked against 6. Since 9 is not equal to 6, 6 gets printed. So this is the difference between break and continue. In case of break, only 1 gets printed. Once element 6 is checked against 6 and break gets executed, that will stop the entire code execution within the loop. It will not again go for the next iteration as well. But in case of continue, it will only skip the current iteration, but we are good to go with the next iteration. So what is the output here? 1 and 9 gets printed. Okay, 1 and 9 gets printed because when the element matches the value 6, continue statement would break the current iteration only. That is the reason 6 doesn't get printed. In case if you have break here, the output will be only 1. Okay, so that is all about continue statement. Now we will talk about list comprehensions. So list comprehensions can be used if you want to create a new list from an existing list. I mean, you have a list and you want to create another list from the existing list. In such cases, you can use list comprehension. I mean, you can do the same thing using a for loop as well, but using list comprehension, the operation will be faster. Okay, creating a new list from an existing list using a list comprehension is faster when compared to the traditional for loop. Okay, using list comprehension, you can do list traversal as well, but if you compare the speed, there will not be much difference. But still, if you write your code using list comprehensions, it will be much more readable. But speed wise, there will not be much difference in case of list traversal. But definitely in case of a new list creation, there is a difference in speed. Okay. Take this example. This list contains even and odd numbers, and from this list you want to create another list. Okay, another list containing only even numbers. That can be done using for loop as well as list comprehension, but doing it from list comprehension is much more faster. So I want to create another list containing only even numbers using list comprehension. That can be done using this single line of code. X for x in list 1, if x modulus 2 equal to 0. Using this single line, you can create another list. This is faster as well as much more readable. Okay. So you can go for list comprehension if you are creating a new list from another list, because list comprehensions are much more faster than the traditional for loops. Okay, I mean in case of creating new list only, not in case of traversals, but in case of creating new list comprehensions are much more faster. This is what I mean to say. List comprehensions are faster than for loops in case of creating a new list. Okay. If you want to do list traversal using list comprehension, you can achieve that using this one line of code. Okay. Print x for x in first list. This is your first list. Printing can be done in single line of code. This is not the case if you use for loop. It will take 2 to 3 lines of code. But here that can be done in single line of code. Okay. That means it is more readable when compared to traditional for loop. And if I want to read only the even numbers, I have a list here containing even numbers and odd numbers, and I want to read only the even numbers. I want to print them. So that can be done using the list comprehension using this line. Print x for x in first list if x modulus 2 equal to 0. You can do this using a just one line of code. Your code is much more readable if you use list comprehension. So, in case of printing, in case of traversing a list, you won't see much difference in speed. Now we will talk about our next sequence data type, that is range. Okay, till now we talked about list, arrays, strings. These are the sequence data types we talked about. Now we will be talking about range. That is our next sequence data type. So what is range? So this is the syntax for range. Range of stop. Okay, this is the syntax for range. There is one more syntax like range start comma stop. Okay, this is another syntax. We have one more thing called range start stop step. So we can generate a range using any of these three functions, either by mentioning stop, or by mentioning start stop, or by mentioning start stop step. Okay, we will see examples for all these things. So range is an immutable sequence data type. Okay, earlier we discussed about list. List is a mutable sequence data type, but range is an immutable sequence data type. Okay, so the first example, range of x. So what is x here? This is the stop value. This is the stop value. So if I say range of 5, okay, range of 5 will generate a immutable sequence, and those values will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Range of 5. 5 is the stop value. So values will be generated from 0 and they will end at stop minus 1, and they will be generated on fly. It is not like list. For list, the elements will be generated all at once, but for a range, elements will be generated on fly. So what range of 5 will do? Range of 5 will create elements from 0 to 5 minus 1. 5 is the stop value. So 0 to 5 minus 1 values will be created, and they will be created on fly. Okay. Now take this example. A equal to range of 5 and B equal to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So A is a range whereas B is a list. In case of A, elements from 0 to 5 minus 1 gets created on fly. In case of B, elements will be created all at once. Okay. A is immutable sequence. B is immutable sequence. Okay. Because A is a range whereas B is a list. Also, if I try to get the size of A, it will be 48 bytes only, because memory won't be created for all the elements at once. Okay, that is the reason the size is 48 bytes. But if you try to get the size of list B, then it will be 120 bytes, because memory will be created for all the elements at once. Okay, in case of range, memory is just 48 bytes, but in case of list B, the memory is 120 bytes. Okay, so what is range of 5 will do? Range of 5 will generate a immutable sequence. Okay, and these will get generated on fly, and memory won't get created for all the elements in the range at once. It will be done on fly. Okay. Next, range start comma stop. Okay. Earlier we discussed range of stop. Now we will see range start comma stop. So what range of 5 did? Range of 5 created elements starting from 0 to stop minus 1, 5 minus 1. That means 0 to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we will see what range start comma stop will do. Range start comma stop will generate a sequence starting with the start value and ending with the stop value, stop minus 1. Take this example, 3 comma 5. So the elements generated on fly will be 3 and 4, because 5 is the stop value, so that value will not be generated. Only 5 minus 1 value will be generated. So elements generated here will be 3 and 4 on fly. Next thing is range start stop step. Take this example. Okay, so this is the start value, this is the stop value, and this is the step value. So what happens here? First, element 10 gets created on fly, and then 10 plus step, that is 25, gets created. 10 and then 25, 25 plus again step, that is 25 plus 15, 40. So 10, 25, 40 will be created, and 40 plus 15 will be 55. But stop value is 50. That means the elements that gets generated on fly here are 10, 25 and 40. So what will happen? This will generate an immutable sequence starting with value 10, and the next value will be incremented by a step value of 15, that is 10 plus 15 equal to 25, and again the next value will be 25 plus 15, which is 40. Okay, since the stop value is 50, the sequence that would be generated on the fly is 10, 25, 40. Okay, that is all about range of start stop step. This is all about today's class, and tomorrow we will be continuing with other sequence data types. Okay.